All right, we are live. Right on, Joey. Good to see you again, dude.
Yeah, good to be back.
There's a little bit of not things happening in the background here. It's been kind of funny. Dude, what's up? I didn't get to see you at ETH Denver. I don't think you went.
Nope.
What have you been up to?
Let's see. I think we talked about. I went out for Mountain Dow, the Solana thing.
That's right. You were there
Um,
before
yep.
me, right?
Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah. So did that little trip, came back, went back to heads down mode. So I missed you at ETH Denver. But sounds like it was a wild event out there.
Dude. Is so let's see. A couple things. I went to the IoTeX event, I went to the Mezon event, I went to the Deep in Soccer thing, I did the A Tour party. I must have done something else. I saw an old buddy from high school. I got so many stories. I'll start with the high school one. So this guy and I played lacrosse together in high school. Haven't seen each other we see each other maybe once every 2 years. And he comes out and he's gotten into the financial industry. He's been doing these big like real estate deals. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be in Denver. Come on by to these things. Just sign up. So he comes by and I'm telling him how it works. You know, how this whole like crazy deep in space works as far as people getting a bunch of money to go build these products. He's like, no, that's not how it works at all. Like this is like first you got to do the SOP 7 and then you got to fill in the 9.4 Dex 1 or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not telling you like what could happen. I'm telling you the history of what has already happened. Like look around you. And he's like, holy shit. So it's funny because I think it's a good indication of like normal people are starting to see what's going on deep and they're like, I want to be a part of that. Cause he was like, oh dude, I'm super excited now. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole different way of doing things. I was just looking through. Was it like I guess IONET announced their fundraise
mhm.
yesterday.
Okay.
And so, they'd been on our radar, you and me, for a little while. We know about
Hmm.
them. Uh, but went starting to look through it. It's just like, this is crazy. Like, there's just straight paying people USDC for work, and like, it's just a platform. And then you don't even like, you know, all this other stuff where you need like massive finance teams to sort out. They're just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Folks are getting after it. I think, let's see. The other stuff I saw someone today that was like, Deep in Hub is an IoTeX shill. Like, I hope that everyone gets held to a higher standards. Like, dude, we're all helping each other. Of course we're all helping each other get bigger. Like, that's the way the space goes right now is that collectively we're still smaller than, a bunch of these giants in the space. So, yeah, we're all going to help each other out. It just seemed like a silly thing to say.
Wait, isn't Deep in Hub the thing that IoTeX built? I'm confused by that statement.
Um, oh, maybe it is. I think maybe they were talking about Hotspotty, or maybe it was the thing that IoTeX built. But it was just like
Oh,
such a
or
silly thing to say.
yeah, shoot, drawing a blank on the hotspotty one, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, busy dying over here coughing. Um, let's see. So I will say IoTeX did a really good job at their event of separating out, and you and I have experienced the bad side of this before. They separated out the speakers, had their own speaking room. It was dark, it was quiet, bunch of chairs in there. You could sit down and listen to what's going on. And then I got something in my throat here, sorry. Then in the main space, they had all the vendors. You could talk as loud as you want. It did get a little bit loud, but it wasn't bad. Super, super nice to have that separation of two different rooms, two different sound spaces. As a little bit of an audio nerd, it's like, oh, these guys got it this time. So cool to see that. Other events I went to didn't do that, and it's obvious when that happens. So
Oh,
yeah,
chaos. Yeah, IoTeX has got this event thing down. They seem to be like really cranking on those, which is cool to see. Yeah.
yeah, they're getting better and better at. It is super cool to see huge number of Asian investors coming in on that side. Every time I go, I'm just like embarrassed at my ignorance of the rest of the world. Where these guys come in, it's like, oh, I haven't heard of you, and then you look them up, like, oh, maybe I should have heard of you. You can
Yeah.
basically eclipse the moon. Like, holy shit.
Right. Yeah. You're like, oh, it's that's the 10th biggest company in the world. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that part was super cool to see so much money floating around, and it wasn't just the Asian investors. There's investors from all around the globe were in there, and it was as soon as you met anyone, they're like, "Hey, what are your favorite projects?" As soon as they heard, they're like, "Oh, you guys are deep in consultants. Like, what are your favorite projects right now?" And I think it's part of that where everybody wants to edge. They all want to get in early, and I get that. Like, that's what makes a difference if you want to make a bunch of tokens or a bunch of money. Um,
Yep.
but there's
And they
also a
want
ton of
over the counter and
yeah.
big volume and all the other crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's also a ton of projects I saw they're just slapping deep and on. You're like, I don't understand. Like, explain to me how that's a deep. And they're like, no. Like, oh, and they, go in a bunch of jargon. I'm like, I don't know, guys. I
there's
kind of get
there's
this.
computers in a room,
Yeah.
so it's physical infrastructure, and yeah, don't
Hmm.
think about it too hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I, do go back to like, hey, I want this space to be big. And so for the computers in a room somewhere, maybe,
Well,
maybe that does get to qualify as some kind of deep in as a DRN versus a PRN, as I think how
I
Sammy
mean,
put it over. I'm sorry.
it's I think worth like tearing apart a little bit. This is kind of a topic that I've been seeing come up more and more.
Yep.
Because yeah, a lot of people are throwing deep in on whatever to try and like get some traction or be on one of those charts of deep ins or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I saw a thread with Ariel from Hive Mapper, and he's going to take a really strong stance. He's like, the thing we're doing is deep in, right?
Hmm.
Um, all this other stuff's not deep in, and I think the thing that came to me sort of reading through some of these other arguments of like Bitcoin is a deep in, or Filecoin is a deep in, or things like that, is does the infrastructure require the physicality of the hardware, right? Does that hardware need to be distributed? WeatherXM, like really clearly, all of that hardware needs to be distributed across the globe, right?
Yep.
You're collecting physical information about the environment. Like that's a really clear deep in for me. Hive Mapper is a really clear deep in. Helium, because it's trying to provide coverage across the globe, like that's deep in. But VPNs are probably like the gray area, right? Like that's where you need hardware in various locations because you're trying to edge into, local networks.
Yep.
Um, but decentralized storage, decentralized compute, those things a lot of the time, like the physicality of the product isn't really the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And as I think as a little bit of a marketing background, instead of as those guys trying to edge into deep in, if I was those folks, I'd be pushing hard, hard for my own kind of category that's like deep in support. So like deep in tech S or something,
Right.
or deep in infrastructure. Like ideally, if the whole thing works out the way I think we all want it to, is that decentralization starts to get layered in where it's appropriate. So we don't decentralize everything to an extreme. And as part of that, you can't have a truly decentralized network on AWS, for example, right? Or a truly like decentralized token incentivized network on AWS. And so I think there's a piece there. It's like, hey, this isn't a deep end, but it's critical. Just like a wheel is not a car, but without wheels, car doesn't fucking go anywhere. So I think there's an important distinction to make, and also there needs to be a fair amount of inclusion in this thing. We got to be really careful about being tribal. As much as a purist, I'm like, no, that's not a fucking deep end. It doesn't have stuff in the world. It's like, hey Nick, be realistic. If you want this thing to be big, do you want it to be truly decentralized? Do you want not only the thing itself, the weather station or the helium hotspot or the Hive Mapper, you want that to be decentralized, or do you also want the entire thing to be what the kind of main benefit of the whole proposition is, which is that power isn't concentrated in one place?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Strong agree on that. It's I think the thing that I worry about is the confusion that I see from folks with respect to like what the network is doing. Like I was
yeah,
on one Twitter space a while back, and the guy's like, "So I'm selling my data, and you guys give me tokens for it." And it's like, no, we're not selling your data. Like that's not. We're not like throwing cookies on your browser kind of stuff, right? Like that's not how this works. Um, you're providing service, and um, I don't know. It just comes down to education, right? Each of these networks is going to do different things. Like, Grass is maybe actually selling your data. Like, I don't know, the
yeah.
browser extension thing. Like,
I haven't done that yet. Max has been doing that, but I haven't touched that. It's just like there's so many fucking
I,
projects.
I don't want it in my browser. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's cool, but yeah.
No, there's some stuff, and then I set up so this is a cool, or I guess what is it, tangential? There's some fancy word for this, but I set up the ATOR relay, which is a hardware relay.
Hmm.
They do basically the Tor thing. and I'm sure they wouldn't appreciate me saying it like that, and I probably should say it in a nicer way. But they're doing the tour thing with hardware you can buy, and so it's a little
Mhm.
bit different in that sense. And as they were explaining it to me, it became pretty interesting. Is that there's these big like blocks in the internet. China is one of them where you can't easily go across it. You basically have to go around it. And in order to go around it quickly, you need to have a bunch of hardware on the more or less the perimeter of it. So physically on the perimeter, so that you don't have to go from wherever Japan all the way down to Australia and then bounce back up over to Europe. Is that you can just go right around the bottom of China. And that part starts to get pretty interesting. Is like, okay, I can see how that could be a deep in. It doesn't make a huge difference in the same way that moving a weather station a mile can make an enormous difference. Moving one of these hardwares a mile or 2 miles probably doesn't make, 10 miles probably doesn't make a huge difference, but they still do want geographic distribution. And so I think it's a good point. Like where is the line, and then what are we trying to do here? So
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know. It's fun. I mean, it's all just highlights that we're like brand new in this space, right? That's the whole, or rather, the space is brand new, right? Like it's
yeah,
defining itself as we go. So,
yep,
um,
yep,
it's exciting problems to have.
yeah, yeah, super cool. There's on one of the panels that I think Kent from the Harvard Blockchain Society, something like that, was on there. And it's funny, I'd asked him like, hey, what are you guys doing to prepare students for the next for the basically the deep end generation? And he's like, I don't know, I don't think he exactly said this, but he's like, it is so new that it's still like everyone's figuring out what to do. There's not like a deep in 101, deep in 201, deep in 301 classes yet. It's not there
Yeah,
at all. And I think those guys are much more focused on starting businesses and not really kind of feeding um, folks into the workforce.
yeah. Um, you mentioned this DRN versus PRN thing. What were those definitions for
Oh,
you?
thank you. PRN is physical resource network and DRN is digital resource network. I think
Mm,
that was in one of Sammy's things over at Masari. I know that
okay,
we had been talking, Max and I had been talking with him about that, and those are the terms that we all figured like, okay, that makes the most sense.
right. That sort of
But
breaks apart that fuzzy line that we're talking about. I think that
yeah,
digital resource is like a easy way to categorize a lot of those other things. So
yeah, yeah. And thinking of them as like two parts of the same globe is if you just break the globe apart, well, the ball doesn't roll downhill; it just stops. So we need both parts in order for the ball to roll downhill.
yeah, yeah.
So what else is going on, dude? What else you been looking at?
I mean, I kind of touched on this IONET thing. I think it's interesting to look at that in context to some of this conversation we've been having. And it's like the, the you mentioned this idea of like they're not doing education on, DPINs right now, right? But
Yep.
I think one of the exciting things that I'm seeing, I've been pushing this really hard for Helium, and it's cool to see other projects doing, but it's really focused on the demand side of these networks. And so you go to like IONET and it's all like spin up a server, right? Use this thing. And then the setup and like mine and like whatever other, earn, rent your machine
Yep.
uh, is like, it's in the docs and it's like sort of a separate part of that conversation because like they know the demand side or the supply side is like there, right? Crypto DPIN is like this big wave, um, but really focusing on the sales and uh, utility side of it is kind of a cool way to approach these projects, and it's exciting to see more people do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw the comments, Joey. Geez, I'm so far behind. So
Oh,
sometimes I'm like on top of technology. Sometimes I'm not. What's
yeah.
up, Derek? What's up, Jim?
Oh,
Good to see
oh,
you
yeah.
guys.
So Derek, like, what do they do? This is a project. It's built on Solana. They effectively let you stand up your machine. They let you stand up your machine for compute, so people can sort of rent the machine, do whatever operations they need to on it, and then spin it down sort of on the fly. Um, and
Dude,
they
that market's
also
gonna get
integrated
tight, huh?
what's that?
That market's gonna. I saw so many folks doing like rentable compute, rentable storage, like this decentralized fill in your like digital offering. That seems
Mhm.
like that's going to be a commodity race to the bottom to me.
Oh, totally. And
Yeah,
that's which is awesome because
it's
I
great for
want
us.
I want it to be like I want cheap servers
Yeah,
and I want them to be robust and great. Um, and like I'm also happy to rent out like my old M1 Mac Mini for 10 cents an hour or something, right? Like that's
yeah,
not a big deal. It's going to be plugged in anyway.
yeah.
Um, So, but yeah, they've also done plugins for the render network. So they're sort of a supply side part of render as well, or sorry, a demand side part of render. Um, and yeah, I think the heat that we're seeing around the decentralized compute stuff is because it edges really nicely into AI, because everyone is just like starving for compute in
Yeah.
that category. And so if they can throw, $100 at a machine to run, train a model, then they're gonna do it every single time. So
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah. It's super cool. I
A little
think,
bit of a gold rush, but yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. It's awful sign is not the word, but it's like, it's a healthy sign when you see all this froth and fizz and the rest of it is like, okay, there's enough energy at the bottom for all these bubbles to fizz up that shit is actually happening. It's probably a way to
Yeah.
think about that.
Yeah.
Let's see, Derek, how do you buy an A-Tor relay without having to sell the farm to get the required NFT? I don't think there's a way to do it. I think they are going to open it up later, but there's 1,000 of them right now. They're on OpenSea for 0.3 ETH the last time I saw. So what is that? $800, which is about right. It's a little expensive for a deepen miner. But I mean, what is it? The new Hive Mapper B is 700 or 600, so it's not that far off.
It's true.
And that thing didn't ship for a while. Dude, I was thinking about this, Joey. We're gonna go off on a hardware tangent. I've got this hotspot that's been up on the mountain. That's been this big helium hotspot. Amateur Jade Hair has been up there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was one that had the giant antenna on it, and I really want to put a Wingbits unit out there, but Wingbits needs something like 90 gigs a month of data, so it's a lot.
Yeah.
So right now I've got a Cradle Point route. I was thinking about this in my walk this morning. You can publicly just like smash my ignorance. Right now I've got a Cradle Point router. I think Cradle Point came with like 2 years of remote access something or other, so that you could get in and whatever fiddle with it. I
Mm-hmm.
put What did I put on it? I don't think I put Tailscale on it. I put something else on it so that I could get into the Raspberry Pi that's connected to the router. But what I'm looking for and what I think would be super cool is there an open source modem that I can build myself, that I don't have to fuck around with all these proprietary pieces of software and say like, hey, what I actually want is a board that is the modem that plugs into my Raspberry Pi, and then I can put anything I want to on another Raspberry Pi. So I can put Wingbits on there as well. And then the only thing I have to switch out when I want more or less data is the SIM card. Does that make sense, or am I making some logical?
Yeah, no, you're basically explaining like the way like a LoRaWAN concentrator plugs into a Pi, right? Like you just want
Yeah.
that piece and then do the software part yourself. Um, I don't know of one. Um,
Okay. I thought it'd be a cool
you know
thing.
what? The particle stuff might be
Oh,
and
that's
this
right.
actually is a thing to talk about too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd have to go poke. I put
It's
on
got to
the
exist.
blinders
I just
to
don't know about
so
it.
much of this stuff because it's
Yeah.
like I get to think about LoRaWAN all day long. But um, yeah, it's got to exist. And then like I'm imagining there's like some open WRT or something like that you could run on there to like manage and do all that fun stuff. There's pretty robust software out there for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Fun to just think
yeah.
about it and think about, for me, is that this is also rise of deep in talk, where if we have, like, once you have a spot that's a good spot that has a great view shed, whatever that's for, whether it's for helium or WeatherXM or whatever, any of the radio stuff, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be an anti-pollution thing coming out. I think Planet Watch was the thing that fell on its face, but either that gets revived or someone else comes up with something, because pretty clearly air pollution is an issue. We're going to have all kinds of frequency or spectrum pieces or plays that go on. So it's like, okay, we're going to need basically a box that you can load any of this stuff onto. You add the custom antenna, and then at some point there's going to be some fancy, I think this is the right word to use, MUX thing, where it's like, yeah, you can use the 915 antenna for both helium and for example, Meshtastic. You can use your other antenna, you 2.4 gig antenna for this thing. You can use this thing for this thing, and you have like a box with 5 different antennas. A Raspberry Pi or something like it is running all of that stuff, because none of that stuff seems to have a super high load, and you end up with something that is more or less what I think of as like where Deepin is going to crush is that if you let someone buy $1,000 box that makes them a couple $100 a month or $100 a month, all of a sudden everybody wants that thing. And if it's providing 9 different services, that starts to get pretty interesting.
With yeah,
I think. Could be wrong.
I mean, I don't know, one single source of failure with like one little hardware box too. That I don't know,
I don't see
scares
anything
me.
could possibly go
But
wrong.
I know some smart people can figure that stuff out, making all
Yeah,
those
maybe
things
there's
work.
like a couple little cards that you just plug into the thing where it's like, oh, here's, like you just add another Pi Zero. And so there's like
Hmm.
slots for 6 Pi Zeros. You just like, oh, here they are. And there's some double modem. What's up, Siegfried? Um,
Yep.
yeah, the Hive Mapper
Um,
B, their cam is front or rear only, Derek, not 360.
I think it's just front. I don't think they're doing 360 on those
Yeah.
yet. It's kind of like the level up of the HDC S, I think.
Yeah. 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 I was psyched to talk to Ariel about it because he's totally getting it. I think that's the other nice thing is he understands the pain point of the customer,
Hmm.
which is someone who wants to buy the thing, hand it off to basically a stranger or someone who doesn't give a single fuck about Deepin and be like, put this in your car. That's all you need to do. You don't need to attach your wallet. You don't need to put in some crazy anything. Put this in your car.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's always been that, like, I was driving around with a dash cam till it got stolen um, from my truck. But the uh, the always the big challenge was like I go do a 4 or 5 hour drive. I end up with gigs and gigs and gigs of data, and it's like a lot of time I'm not in cellular range. Like I can't just sit in my garage with my car running for 3 hours to upload all that
yep.
stuff. So um, yeah,
Yeah. Super cool to
yeah.
see. What else? I gotta do some mucking about with some MQTT stuff because I'm just noticing like, oh, this is probably the time to do a little bit more helium work around the house. We got a couple plants that are not getting watered correctly. I was like,
Mhm.
Travis had showed me something. I think it's the seed. What is the little 4-inch screen? It's like the Inspiron or
The
something.
shoot, he said a thing and now it's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Sorry. So it's
I've
like
got the
some seed
bigger
little
version
4-inch
of it,
screen. You
the
can,
reterminal.
yeah.
Yeah,
Is that it?
I think so. I've
Yeah.
got the reterminal DM, which is like a full thing, but
Yeah, so I want to hang one of those things on my wall and then basically take all of the helium sensors, put them around the house in the various plants, and make it so that Lee doesn't have to log into anything. She can just look at the wall and be like, oh, the avocado tree needs something or the weather thing needs a little bit more. Like here's where they all are. So it's like a fun little visualization project using helium because I don't know that I want to put like 900 more Wi-Fi devices on my network.
yeah, yeah. Um, you could plug it all into HomeKit too. I think there's probably some projects out there that would like let you run the Helium stuff in over MQTT
Oh
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
like,
Actually, that's how I did it. Is I ran it in a Home Assistant, but I just haven't done the visualization part other than logging into Home Assistant, which Lee is not going to do.
right. Yeah, it's just got to be up there, ready to go.
Yeah. So let's see what else.
Yeah.
I saw a bunch of different projects. I talked about them on the Gristle Crew yesterday. I think, yeah, all of them were so like wild that I'm not sure that is like putting them out here is the right thing to do. But I did see one that was it was interesting. The guy's like, oh, we do we help smokers quit smoking, and we do it by producing a device that you vape, and it's lower nicotine, and you get rewarded for not like puffing so much, or whatever it's called, vaping. I'm not a vapor.
Sure.
So instantly I'm like, well, why wouldn't I just buy one and put it in my pocket and not vape at all? Because I'm not a smoker and collect your tokens and basically just be a vampire, which is something that I wouldn't do, but certainly we've seen people do. It's like, no, we're going to have really strict anti-gaming policies in place. I'm like, oh, dude,
That's rough. Yeah.
fuck, that's going to be a tough row for you to hoe, dog.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, we're a little bit jaded having seen the extents that people will go sometimes to
Yeah. Yep.
get.
And Max had a good point on stage about he's like, hey, you want like a slight ability to game in a project because you want people to feel like they can get a little bit of an edge. You just don't want that edge to be something that damages the network. And
Sure.
so that it was an interesting thing. I never think this way, but Max is super good thinking about what actual people will do who might not be, like totally like I want the health of the network. It's like, oh yeah, he's totally right. If you let people think like they get a little bit of something by deploying their thing and moving it over 20 meters, and by moving it over 20 meters, as a bullshit thing, like when it's actually on the roof, they say it's on their neighbor's roof, and they think that gets them more and that causes them to deploy more whatever nodes. Yeah. Shit, yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that working, being super practical.
It's interesting. I think of it also. Yeah, there's this like thing that happens in corporations where people will go and send them invoices for things that never happened and
Oh
try
yeah.
to see if they can get paid. And I think a lot of companies they just pay them, right? Like it's $500. Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to think about it, kind of.
Yep.
And it's inefficiencies, right? Like those sort of inefficiencies exist in any large organization,
Yep.
whether it's a crypto thing or a corporation, multinational, whatever. And in the grand scheme of things, it should be a small percentage of the overall like efficiency of
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. If it's 80%, like you've got big problems.
Yep.
Um, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Siegfried, the thing with the Vapor was that you did have to stake some amount of tokens and you got it back if you did a better job or something like that. But it just seemed like it was super easy to game. And I'm not like, I don't have the gaming mind, so I can't think of it. But there's some people who like, they'll instantly see the exploitable flaw and be like, oh, that's it. Rolling.
Just got to make them like staple it to their chest or something as a
Yes, I think
civil
he had the
resistance.
idea. He's like, oh, it's going to be connected via Bluetooth to the phone, so you can't have it that far away. But it's like, why don't they just buy another vape, smoke as much as they goddamn want of like the full nicotine thing, pretend that they're quitting, and earn tokens on tokens they stake.
I mean, I was going to go an entirely different direction with the thing, which is a particulate matter sensor that would electrocute you if you were.
It was just a little shot collar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is because I've hung out with Teague too much.
Yeah, that guy puts shot collars on everything. So
Yeah.
he'll put shot collars on his mailbox if he could.
Yeah. That'll end you in federal prison. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Speaking of some DIY stuff, I wanted to touch on this thing with Particle, which was something that I think came up last week.
Yeah, that was like the satellite, LoRa, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, the everything board.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing that I want to touch on here, so it's a developer entry point, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like an all-in-one platform for building internet connected things. And the cool thing that these platforms do is they abstract away all of the like manage your keys, think about type A connections, type C connection, like whatever.
I forgot
It's
about
it's an
A's and C's.
interface.
Oh my god.
Yeah, all that fun stuff.
Yep.
And so basically, it's kind of like plugging in like a seed sensor, and you just say like, I want this data over here, and it kind of does it. Or there's a handful of platforms doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
But as a developer entry point, it's really exciting because we're starting to see this like decision matrix go away around like, do I use LoRaWAN? Do I use satellite? Do I use Wi-Fi? Like, just get the one chip in a prototype setting, in a small production run setting. Just do all of the things, right? And it's this idea of we've heard float around called convergence, where people should just be able to connect things to the internet without having to like think about how it's happening. Because that
if it's going to get
you're
big,
never,
yes.
Yeah, you're never going to sell that to a consumer side,
No.
and it's already a hard sell on the developer side. So like, go use the thing and like just build the solution and then figure out those details later.
Yep.
So I'm really excited about these, obviously.
Yeah.
But
I ordered one. I'm like, dude, I have no idea what I'm gonna fucking use this for, but I've just found that it doesn't hurt to have a ton of shit on the desk back there. Because I'll be talking to Travis and be like, hey, do you have the like SM742? And I'm like, I don't think I do. He's like, no, you bought it a while ago. You were talking about it. I was like, oh, I do. Let me go get that thing out.
Your own librarian.
Yeah. Yeah, he's good about it. He told me to buy one of these little things. Have you seen these little M5 stick C thing?
I think I've seen those. I haven't touched one, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get it to turn on here. Oh, maybe I hit the wrong button. Yeah, some magic right there.
Yeah.
And it's got some little box thing that tells you which way you're pointing. It's got, what else does it have? I think I hit this button to get it to do different stuff. I think there's a timer. There's some talkie talk stuff on there. So it's like, oh, it's listening to you, and it'll tell
Oh,
you.
there's all sorts of stuff in there.
Yeah. There's let's see, some, I like that's Bluetooth or something. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
This thing will list all the Wi-Fi's I've got on it, and it does it pretty quick, picks them all up. And then there's some more Bluetooth, something else. Yeah. It's like a fun little toy to be like, oh, when I have a little bit extra time, I'll plug a cable into this thing and see what I can find.
Yeah. That could be Lee's plant monitor. Stick one of those on each plant. Just a little sad face when it needs something.
Yeah. I could do that. Well, I still have a bunch of the little red LoRaWAN sticks that are the soil moisture sensors. So I've just got to get those in there, print out a couple more of the mushroom caps, and then drop those in the plants around the house and actually build that thing, which I meant to do a year ago.
Yeah, I need to get some of those. I totally forgot you did that like mushroom design too. My girlfriend has resorted to some iPhone app that tells her what's going on with her plants.
Yeah.
And she's learning one plant at a time that way.
Nice. Yeah, no, we got a couple plants around the house that are just like, oh, what's going on with that thing? Like, I'm pretty sure it needs more water. So
yeah.
Dig it. That's probably everything that I've got. I had like a ton of stuff that came back from the conference, but mostly just people are super excited about Deepin, and the thing is blowing up. And everybody watching this is already into the whole thing, so it's not much of an exhortation, but the takeaway from you is like, yeah, this is going to be a pretty big industry in the next year or two. So figure out what you want to do, like how you want to have fun, and then go do that thing, because there's plenty of people who want you to do it.
Yeah, we're cranking on the foundation side. We've got a lot of irons in the fire, whatever that. So
many irons, many fires. Yeah. Dig it. All right, Doug. I think we can probably wrap it. We don't need to go the full hour unless there's something where you're like, no, we need to absolutely talk about this. But I got like 90 calls today.
If there's anything in those comments, but yeah.
Let's see. The latest helium hip to shut down the gaming. There will never be a helium hip that shuts down all gaming. So whether it's live or not, there's always going to be that 1 or 2%.
Yeah. Most hips usually are just like adjustments.
Yeah. What was the device you and Nick were just discussing? Not the M5, but something else. I don't know. Oh, it was the particle.
Oh yeah. So yeah, go to, I think it's particle.io. And the M series is the one that has LoRaWAN in it. So brand new thing for Particle to support LoRaWAN.
Yep. And 40 or 50 bucks, like it wasn't that much.
Yep. And it's going to have direct support for Helium right inside of their platform, which is the sort of awesome thing there. So people can buy the thing, onboard it straight away without even thinking about it. They're going to have coverage because it's Helium. It's all good stuff.
Cool.
And then I think you were talking about your soil moisture sensor, but that's the MakerFab, right?
Yeah, the MakerFab thing. I've got a box of them back there. You can probably pull them out.
Yeah.
Dig it.
Yeah.
Siegfried says 103 is live. Did you ever do the Wingbits thing? Did you ever get into that?
No. I've got a ADSB stuff down in my basement. I got to figure out where I'm going to put it. But
okay.
I got the antenna and all that.
Those guys are doing some really fun stuff with the dashboard and starting to make it a little more like a game, so that you can see what percentage of the hexes that you're covering, what percentage of that coverage comes from your antenna.
Mm-hmm.
So it just totally makes it a game. It's like, oh, I'm at 18%, and my buddy Dirk is at 19%. Like, what's Dirk doing that I'm not doing?
Yeah.
And so it's been
a lot of
super
filters
fun
or something.
Yeah.
I'll have to play around with that. One of the things that popped into my head when you were talking about the bandwidth requirements, it'd be interesting if they would let you do a different class of service. So like amateur Jade Hair could operate at 1/10 of the bandwidth or something like that, and just sends, whatever it sees every 10 seconds instead of every half second or whatever it is on ADSB. So could be interesting angle for them just to expand coverage or
yeah. I mean, I'd like to see him. It's something that Jerm had told me about doing, is this whole MUX thing where you're using if all these things are using 915, you've already got a helium hotspot out there, you've already got an antenna, you've already everything is already set up. I would like to see, I'm sure maybe the project exists somewhere, but I'd like to see openmux.com or .io, whatever the fuck they're going to do it, where it's anything you're running on 915, plug this thing in, and now you can run all your different pieces on one little Raspberry Pi, because it doesn't seem like it's that much processing power.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm way out of my depth there. So someone's going to watch it and be like, God, that guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, well, it's the details, right? Will
Yeah.
get you. But
Yeah. It's a bunch
yeah,
of, look at these hand wavy things.
yeah. Somebody should do that.
Somebody should
I don't
really
want
get on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ripping, dude.
Uh,
Um,
cool.
yeah.
I'll back Siegfried on his comment there. Everyone should go read but there was a whole bunch of hips went up yesterday on the helium side of things. So
Okay.
yeah, go get caught up.
We need Armand's hip to get approved. All right. Super important to approve that. I'll get in there. I've been mostly what I've been doing embarrassingly in the helium wallet is following all these shit coins and just having a good time. Like, oh, I'll put $100 in this stupid dog coin. Let's see what happens. So yeah.
I'm getting So I you know how all the Solana developers got bonk airdrops?
Yeah.
That would be
heard this,
worth
yeah.
$1 million today. I think I ran the numbers on it.
Jesus.
Everyone sold all of them because they're like, what's this like random dog coin that I got? And then it kind of did a little, price action right when people got it. But man, if I wish I had some like cold wallet that had that or something, that would have been fun. But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. All these different marketing strategies we're seeing is Max and I talked to all these projects and they're like, oh, should we airdrop? And for a while I was like, no, don't touch that because airdrops are scams. And now it's like, well, as much as I don't like it, seems to be a super effective way to get people to talk about it. And there's also, there's got to be some stuff going on in the background through the ETH Denver thing. I met some people who are super, super savvy on the social network side. Mm-hmm. And you see some projects doing really well. It's like, oh, that's not an accident. Like, you guys know what you're doing there. Just like there's super nerds on the radio side, there are super nerds on everything. So it's kind of cool to see how these different projects launch and do their work.
Right. Yep.
So.
All right. We're drawing this out.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
I'll let you
Good
go.
to see you. I'll catch you probably next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Later.
Peace.